What is up, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back to Crazily episode number 4 of New Dogs Old Tricks.
What's up,
I'm Bryce.
guys?
Got Brennan right here, or right there. I'll get this figured out one of these days. It's again crazy. Every time we start off, it's just insane. 4 episodes down. It's starting to pick up. So I can't believe I'm so excited for next year when we got the 2 episodes a month. But it seems like we're recording one after another, reaching out to some awesome people and hearing from some, and it's just been surreal.
Learning a lot.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, absolutely.
Get started.
Learning a lot. It's been great, and just like on top of the surreal, we're gonna thank our sponsor and everything, which is still crazy to say, and just even crazier updates to today and the last couple of days. So I mean, first, absolutely, you guys have heard us talk to him. Finally got to listen to him on the podcast. So hope you guys really enjoyed that. But Jeremy Sanders, Crew First Culture, go give him some love on either his website, get some merch from him, check out his podcast, go to any of his trainings, listen to hear him teach. I mean, he's a great guy. Fantastic firefighter, awesome captain, just awesome guy to learn from. So I really hope you guys have been showing him some love on there. If you order anything from him, you over by him, don't be afraid to let him know that you came from us. I'm sure he'd love to hear that. It's been pretty cool. So that's just awesome. And one to the next. I mean, then you got Jobtown Graphics. So this is just end of June that we're recording this one. It'll be August when this one comes out. So we're getting a little ahead, but you guys got to see the logo. We sent that out earlier this month. Finally got it finished up in the top right. Like I said, I'll get my directions down one of these days. But turned out amazing. He's done some awesome things. He's done some awesome logos. I hope some of you guys have checked them out, or you're thinking of checking them out to make some logos. He just sent us a bunch of stickers. So we got some New Dogs Old Tricks podcast stickers. We've been handing these out. So he sent us a ton of these. So awesome.
They look great. They look great.
You guys know us, you run into us, whatever. We're going to try and have some of these on us to hand out. So quality of stuff is great. He's got all sorts of different merch. We'll be getting some coming down the pipe here, but just insane. And then, last and third, just absolutely crazy, Taylortons. So we just talked to them today as well with the new logo and everything. And they're sending us some merch of their own. We're getting a tin, it sounds like, some keychains, another street sign with their logo, like just awesome stuff that they're sending us because they really enjoy the podcast and put a little pressure on them. They're trying to convince Taylor to come on the podcast with us.
We gotta get them on.
Yeah, so a little bit of pressure. They have said as well, if you're ordering some stuff from them, make sure you let them know that we sent you. The bunch of other people in the shop there, firefighters there, that they said they're trying to convince to come on and break out their shell to come join us. So just awesome stuff. Insane, crazy. Never would have thought that'd be, especially episode 4. Like I said, it's crazy we've done 4 episodes, but it's even crazier that it's only been 4 episodes. We get to talk about all this cool stuff already. So just awesome stuff. So without further ado, we've got an awesome guest on the podcast today. I got to learn from him, one of the IAFF's instructors in the course here. He'll touch on that a little bit, I'm sure, when we get talking into it. But great guy coming all the way from Boston. I'll let him do all of his introduction with them. We got Kenny Hayes.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
What's up, Kenny?
Doing all right. All
right, so like you heard, let's hear a little introduction about yourself. Tell everybody, tell us what you want to know.
Okay. Again, Kenny Hayes. I'm currently a captain. Been on the job in Boston for over 25 years now. In April, I hit my 25-year mark. I still haven't gotten my pin. Supposedly, we get pins at 25 years and 40 years. Speaking of that, if my accent is a little too much, just tell me to slow down. I get that a lot. One of the nice things about teaching, all over is, people pick up on that accent pretty fast.
Oh yeah,
it's not phony, and I'm not trying to, but I do talk a little fast. So, I got on the job. I was appointed to a ladder company out of drill school. So I spent 9 years, my first 9 years on a truck, ladder 15, which is downtown near pretty close to Fenway Park. So if you have visited Boston, more than likely, you've seen it as like a tourist. It's kind of a tourist trap firehouse. A lot of people popping in, thousands of people, over a weekend. Pretty busy area. Busy. I'll backtrack a little bit. I'm also married, 2 beautiful daughters. I have a daughter who just finished her freshman year at college. She is going to start her second year at U Chicago in the fall. I have another daughter who is 16, who's going to be a junior in high school. and I've been married for almost 23 years.
Wow.
Yep. So I met my wife in the Navy. So she did 6 years in the Navy and I did 4 years. And with our 10 years combined, neither one of us ever saw a ship. So it's pretty odd. Yeah. So we did land duty for 10 years combined, both of us. So that's a little bit different. But yeah. So been on the job, like I said, over 25 years. And I'm currently the captain of Ladder 4. Lucky enough to get that spot back in January. So I've been there just about 7 months.
Awesome.
Still getting my feet wet there. And it's an awesome spot.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So that's awesome. It kind of gave me another question that I'll throw in there, because you've obviously done a real good job of managing your fire life and family life as well, because we'll get into and with asking some of your questions, but you've been instructing all over. So that'll be a good one to touch on, I think, for a lot of people to hear. But no, I mean, without further ado, we'll just start hitting as many of these questions as we can get. So we got our first one. You kind of talked a little bit about your history, but how did you end up in the fire service?
So I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't grow up chasing fire trucks, and, I didn't volunteer at any small towns before. Typical, childhood in the city. I grew up right in the city. I grew up in a great neighborhood in the city. Tried college. Didn't last more than one semester. Not that I wasn't a good student. It's just that I realized that college wasn't for me. I was going to school down in Florida at a small college in St. Augustine, Flagler College. Me and my buddy tried it out. We didn't even visit the school. We just decided to go to college in Florida. And we both lasted one semester. And it's kind of a funny story. It's just after class one day, we got some financial help, but my parents were still paying a bulk of it. And it just didn't sit well with me that I was in school and possibly wasting money on something I really didn't feel passionate about. Mm-hmm. So after class one day, I just started walking down Main Street in St. Augustine and just killing time. And I ended up seeing a recruiting office, and it was all 4 branches. So I popped my head in and I started looking at some Marine Corps brochures. And next thing I know, I hear a knock behind me, and I turn around, and there's a gentleman in a Navy uniform. And he says, "Is there anything I can help you with?" And I said, "I'm just here to get some information on the Marines." He said, "Well, they're at lunch right now. Is there anything I can help you with?" 20 minutes later, I signed up for the Navy. I always joke, like, that could have been the circus who knocked on that door behind me at that point. I was willing to try anything. But yeah, so I called my parents, and another funny story. My dad was a Marine, and I called him and I said, I said, "Dad, I just want to let you know, when I come home for winter break, I probably won't be going back." And, I laid it on that I had just joined the Navy, and, he wasn't upset that I joined the Navy or, because he was a Marine. He wanted to see me finish school, but I said, my heart's just not in it. And I figured they could help me learn to swim, because I was a terrible swimmer growing up, horrendous swimmer. And I'm like, "Yeah, they'll make me, I'll put myself in an uncomfortable situation. They'll make me learn how to swim." But that never came to fruition.
Yeah, that must have been why they didn't put you on any of the boats. They kept you on land, huh? Yeah.
No, I was in boot camp. It was terrible. It's a very basic test. You jump off a platform into the pool, get to the other side of the pool. However I looked terrible, so I failed. So then they sent me down the other end of the pool and with some of the other inner city kids, and who also failed the test. But basically, they said, "Get back in the water and get to the other side of the pool. I don't care how you get there, just get there." So I kind of paddled my way across and cast. That's all it is. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, I ended up in the Navy, not knowing how much that would play into becoming a firefighter. So one of the times I was home on leave late in that 4-year enlistment, my uncle, we were at a wedding, and my uncle mentioned to me, because my uncle was at the time a chief on Boston.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, my mother's brother, Billy, he was a chief on the job. And he said, "Kenny, have you ever given any thought to, the police or the fire department?" And I said, "Not really." I said, I was thinking about all different things when I got out, like maybe applying to go back to college to possibly be in the FBI. I had high hopes and all that. But I still really wasn't sure. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I will take the exam. So I took the exam, and only because I served in the military did I even get like looked at to be on the job, because the way Boston and the way Massachusetts does it is they only hire off certain lists initially. So they hire veterans, they hire minorities, they hire, second language. They give preferences for all these different things. So if I was just a regular, Joe Schmo off the street who took the exam and did excellent on it, more than likely I wouldn't get called, because they hire off those other lists first. So I had no idea about any of that stuff. So
yeah.
Joining the Navy was not only did I not waste any time, it was great. I met my wife. It set me up for success later in life. So
Awesome.
That's how I got on the job, and that was back in April of '98. So I can't believe how fast it's gone. I know you probably hear that, in the short few episodes you've done, you're gonna hear that same thing, how fast it goes.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. I think Blatz mentioned that last one. Of just don't blink, like it's over like that. So yeah, it's crazy. That's why we're bringing this in, is having all of these experienced people, everybody with all these years on, is just not losing that, because just a blink of an eye, all of you guys with the 20 plus years on, you're going to be gone off the job, and it's just us. So that was a big thing for it. But yeah, that's what everybody has said, is it just goes by like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. And when I did get on it, it was a different job. It was, they were hiring guys, probably, when I say guys, I did have female in my class, but they were hiring probably 25 every 6 months, and compare that to nowadays, where they hire 60 to 90 probably every 6 months. It's the turnover is incredible compared then to now. It was a much older department when I came on.
Yeah, that's what everybody says as well. So it's crazy. But I mean, perfectly tied into it, our next question we got on here is, what did you do as a new firefighter to earn the respect of your crew?
So another thing, I guess there is some benefits to having an uncle on the job. So the way, out of drill school, out of the academy, we call it drill school, but out of the academy, I was appointed to ladder 15. So in Boston, and maybe some other cities do the same, but basically you're not really appointed to a house, you're appointed to an apparatus, whether it's an engine or a truck. Not usually a rescue company, but there were times over the last the last 20 years that here and there, one or two people would get appointed to a rescue company. You don't see it anymore at all, but you did, about 20 years ago, you did see that a couple times. So I was sent to ladder 15, and when I got there, I was the youngest by 15 years. So the next oldest guy was, I was a pretty young guy. I turned 24 in the academy. So just like you two, I was pretty young. And the next, the next guy to me was nearly 40 years old. So there's a big gap.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it was one of those places, like you hear the cliche, like certain houses run themselves. It was kind of like that, because there was so much experience in that house at that time. There was a lot of reasons why it was older, which at the time I didn't understand. But certain houses tended to have older guys kind of float that way for reasons other than, just the actual job itself. We had this system in the city where, depending on the neighborhood you worked in, there were opportunities outside of work to do like a paid fire watch, and different neighborhoods had a lot more paid fire watches. So guys, to make it a few extra bucks, on the side, tended to kind of, make their way to houses that were in those areas downtown that had a lot of fire watch potential. Now that's since changed. The whole city is even. Doesn't matter where you work. Everybody gets equal opportunity to do a fire watch.
Cool.
Yeah, I can explain a little bit more about that too when we, if we get into a little bit about the line of duty death we had. As far as earning respect, I think the military background obviously helped big time. Not that I needed to grow up or anything, but going from the military right into the academy really felt like seamless. I'd already kind of built up a little bit of mental fortitude, not just because of boot camp itself. Boot camp is not really difficult. It's a mental game. And then, being stationed in different places you don't want to be, and having to be there for 1 to 2 years, and having no say in where you go. And then, like, again, getting the opportunity to get on the job and then get into the academy, you're almost grateful. You're like, I can handle this.
Yeah.
And then getting, I kind of briefly talked about how I had an uncle on the job. So there are times that having a family member on the job who has a little bit of, push with certain folks on the job and getting assignments, ladder 15 was a desirable spot. It still is, it's a little different now, but ladder 15 was a great spot to get out of the academy, because a lot of times they kind of send you where they need to as far as firehouses go for manpower. They definitely didn't need a new guy at ladder 15. So when they got me, I made the group heavy, as we say, which means that every time I came to work, one of those, crustier older guys had to get sent to another firehouse that needed a body, because I made the group kind of heavy. So as far as manpower goes, but so, I just kept my mouth shut, like, again, a lot of cliches I bet people say as far as, like, what a pro be, how he should act. I felt like I did a pretty good job of that, just kept my mouth shut, I was a sponge. I had some great guys who, just excellent guys, and who were also, I think 2 of them were carpenters at the time on the side. So as far as learning the tools, which I had no clue as a city kid, I never used tools growing up.
Yeah.
I grew up in an apartment complex, no backyard, no shed full of tools. My dad didn't, I didn't build anything with my dad growing up.
Yeah.
Just a little different. But yeah, being a probie, and I just, I think the military was a huge help in that. Huge help.
Yeah.
And being the first new guy they had gotten in a while. So yeah, everybody was very welcoming, and it was a great spot to go right off the bat, because they were very busy. And when I say busy, it's a lot. That's everything. That's the smells and bells, as we call it. You're running all day, investigating central station alarms, automatic alarms, local alarms. There was the subways. There was the trains. There was we had, our firehouse was kind of built up over a freeway, so we had everything. We had the big city, the high rises, elevators.
Yeah.
So we were always averaging, close to 4,000 calls a year.
Okay.
15.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so kind of fast forwarding, then we're going from one end to the other one. How do you now, as a captain, how do you motivate your young firefighters as they walk in the door?
So again, you can probably hear a lot of cliches. I have this little thing. Like, I've been kind of thinking about these things for a while, not with this podcast, but I've been trying to think of something when I teach. Like I really never lost that probie mindset, I call it. Like, I still act like a probie, and that includes, like, when I show up to a firehouse as the new captain. Like, I keep my mouth shut. I act like a sponge for a little bit. I kind of take everything in, see who the players are. I already have an idea already of how the house is kind of set up and who's on what group. Those are all things I investigated before I got it. Because when we put in for a company, let's say, the beginning of the month, they put out 10 to 15 companies that are open for certain positions, whether it's a firefighter, lieutenant, or captain, or chief. So you put in for it, you bid for it, and it's all based on your time and rank. So at the 15th of the month, so they put it out in the beginning, and by the 15th of the month at 5 p.m., all the papers are collected, and basically whoever has the highest paper for that, the most time and rank for that certain spot, they get it. So I knew, like, late afternoon on the 15th that I got, my spot. So I had a couple of weeks before I actually had to show up on the 1st of the next month. So yeah, that's when a lot of my, my homework was done. But I knew this company already just from training. And that's honestly one of the best things about teaching on my job, is the ability just to meet everybody, because I was in a bubble for a long time. My little ladder 15, my first 9 years, I was in a bubble, ladder 15, group 4. And I didn't think anything was better than that. I didn't go outside for anything. I hated to leave the firehouse, and I would do anything to not get sent to another firehouse, because I loved ladder 15 so much. And yeah, there was a lot of company pride there, but I think it was also more because I was comfortable there and I was a bubble. So that was kind of time when I realized it was time to kind of grow up. All right, time to get serious, time to start thinking about something different. And that's when I started thinking about changing it up a little bit, trying a heavy rescue company, trying an engine, eventually starting to study. So I know I'm going all over the place here, but yeah.
No, that's good. No, that's good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think keeping that mindset is great. I mean, like down to even just the chores, like, you got to experience it very minimally, but our department is very unique where it's, our one station on track for 3,000. So, supposed to be even busier. It'd be the first time that we'd hit that number, but, we running a decent amount for a one station department, but then just the layout of it. So not having the truck assignments, basically it changes every day you walk in. I mean, you could be MPO on the ambulance, tailboard, driving the truck. It just, if you have the cert, you get to do it. And I think it just kind of adds to everybody being the same, because like, our shift, our captain lieutenants, and every shift, they're all participating in the chores. They're all doing everything like that. So I think that does a lot, is keeping that, like you said, probie mentality. It says a lot as the young guy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I'm envious of the way you guys have done it, the way most departments do it. You're assigned to a house or a station, and you have to know everything. When I say I was in a bubble, it's like we had an engine across the bay, engine 33. If someone had asked me, can you get water out of that pump? There was times when I couldn't, because I was assigned to ladder 15. I didn't care about the engine.
Yeah.
And if I worked on the engine, an extra shift on the engine or anywhere in the city, I was either stuck on the hydrant position, or ideally, luckily, I'd be on the pipe or the nozzle. So you were never going to run the pump as a guy from a truck. It just wasn't going to happen. Yeah. But what I mean is, by being sent to a house, you would have learned all those positions. You would have rotated through all those. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that. And that's one of my regrets as a firefighter. I never tried an engine, really like a real, like, to get work as an engine firefighter. I did a lot of work on an engine as an officer, but not as that firefighter role. So there's some regrets, but I tried to make up for that throughout my career. And
yeah, for sure. So next one that we got on here is kind of along the same lines. What do you think brings a crew together the best?
Well, a good call, and that's not always a fire. Just something that you immediately want to talk about. Not saying that not like we want to correct something, but I think a unique call, is one of those things that can bring you together. Definitely a good fire. We can't get enough of those. I know that. I've been chasing those just like you guys. I know it's like I'm on the busiest truck right now, hoping, I have to put up with a lot of, nuisance calls to hopefully get more fires, but still at this point in my career, I'm still kind of chasing that. I still have that desire to get work.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I guess I wouldn't be on the show. None of these people would be on the show if they didn't, love that part of the job. But it's not always a fire that can bring you together. Different calls, unique calls. Maybe even you work like through a blizzard, a unique shift,
Right.
Then, of course, the camaraderie side. I've only been at Ladder 4 for, like I said, almost 7 months. And I'm trying to instill, for my group at least, I'm the captain of Ladder 4, but across the floor is Engine 14, and they have a lieutenant. And we're basically a group of, 8 of us minimum on shift. And then we also have a chief in the house, and he has his driver. So there's 10 of us at all times working on Group 1 on Ladder 4. So I try to instill quarterlies. So we have quarterly inspections that we're required to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to instill quarterlies and nights out. So quarterly nights out for all of us. So we've been, like I said, in the 7 months, we've already did our first 2 quarterlies. So we're going to keep those on track.
Yeah.
Dinners, dinner, night out, a few drinks. One time we went to a really fancy steakhouse. Recently we tried to go to a Red Sox game that we never made it inside because it was, we ended up at the restaurant too long. Then it poured out. So it was a rain delay and none of us really made it inside. But, and I know these guys, but it took some time. And, I was there for a couple months. And I said, all right, let's go out for the holidays. And we waited till after Christmas and after New Year's. And, I think it was late January, early February. That was our first night out as a group since I've been there. And, we just did one recently. So I'm going to keep that up, those quarterlies, just kind of making fun of what we normally have to do, which is quarterly inspections.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good twist on it. Yeah, we've tried to do many things like that. And with summer, it's harder. Our shift rotation kind of makes it hard because, we got our 24/48. So you only have really that one night that you could plan doing something going out in there. So it's really got to work for everybody. So it makes it a little hard, but I didn't think of that. That is tough. Yeah, last month or 2 months ago, I think it was, we went out for laser tag. I think we got like everybody but two, our captain and one of our senior guys who he was on light duty at the time. But we got a pretty good number for it. But yeah,
that's great.
The only hard part is it, especially because a lot of us live all over. Like our captain's down in Sun Prairie, I'm up in Fond du Lac, which is basically like an hour and a half difference. So
yeah,
trying to find one night that works for everybody is a little tough, but we try and do the best we can.
Yeah.
So well, I don't want to tell you my schedule. It's incredible, but
I assume that you saying you have group 4. I have a good assumption as to what your schedule is, which yes makes me jealous.
Take a guess.
In 24/72.
So it's 24, 48 off, 24, 96 off.
Okay.
So
all right.
1, 2, 1, 4.
Yeah. All right. So that I like that better than 24/72, but that's ideal. That's you did that and modified it. So yeah. that's
so awesome.
That's funny. We talking a little about camaraderie and bringing a group together. There's a lot of guys on our job because we didn't switch to 24s until maybe 10, 12 years ago. So the first half of my career, we weren't in the 24-hour schedule. We were you did a day shift, then you came in the following night. Similar to FDNY, but not as crazy with all the Kelly days and stuff.
Yeah.
We did a day and night, then we were off for 24 hours, then we did a day, night, then we were off for 3 days. And a lot of guys like that better because you could still swap a shift with a guy and make your own 24-hour shift if you wanted to. You had more flexibility. And what it did was, though, when we went to 24-hour schedule, it kind of took away that day shift that you worked, that maybe after work everybody would go out together.
Yeah.
Especially for like events like, the softball league, and those things used to be really popular. A lot of that stuff is kind of, with the new schedules, it's kind of, I don't want to say not as popular, because maybe, although softball's not as popular with us, our hockey programs are very popular. And that was the opposite when I came on. So so there's benefits to some different schedules.
Yeah, we're kind of locked in with ours and hard to branch out. So there's been talks about switching, but we're just such a unique department. There's just so many challenges that come in with it. But yeah, there's been a couple times like Brennan. I wasn't on his shift at the time, but for Brennan's 21st, I believe you all went out for drinks like the next morning. So you turned 21 on shift, didn't you?
I did, yeah, on shift.
So the next morning, I know I've heard many of the stories from that before I came to the shift of what happened that morning. But like, stuff like that, you just gotta find a good third shift bar.
A long day, let me tell you.
There was a time, I don't want to get too crazy, but there was a time where guys bet before the shift. that was a long time. Things are very different. Yeah, you always hear the stories. It's crazy how much things can change. Yeah, we became professional. All of us became professional.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, so next one that we got on here, so it's going to be talking about a little bit, give you opportunity to talk about some of your teaching. So what's your favorite thing about teaching at FDTN and with the IAFF, and why should new firefighters make it out to those trainings?
So, good question. FDTN, that is, have you guys been there at all before?
I've been there.
Okay.
Yeah. Last year, I think it was.
Did you go for a specific class, or were you there?
It was like the fireground day, so you did like the RIT, you did like all the stations.
Oh yeah, so I was there then.
Yep, I think
that's right.
Yeah, Captain Yankee. You would have been there with Captain Yankee from our group.
That's right.
When we went through.
Oh yeah, so that's. I mean, I would love to be involved with a lot more there, but luckily enough, I get the opportunity to go there twice a year for the live burn camp, which is what you're describing. Yep. So the live burn camp is 6 stations over the 3 days. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, for 3 straight days, and you hit all the 6 stations. It's a great opportunity for a firefighter to kind of get a little taste of everything. And not only that, it's just the opportunity there's so many instructors. Jim McCormick, what makes that place special is the amount of instructors he brings in for that class in particular, because I mean, all his classes, he has an incredible amount of instructors. Like the student ratio to instructor it's not a good business model. I don't think it's, he's not killing it. He's, just with his logistical needs and his staff, it's just barely enough to get the class going. But he doesn't do it for the money. That's obvious. Yeah. And, it's incredible what he does, because he's able to bring in people from small volunteer departments, and I'm talking instructors, small volunteer departments who are just passionate, to big cities all over the country. And it's unique that they all come together and they're all kind of humbled to be there. It's an honor. It's an honor to even be, asked to even be involved. So talk about, just keeping my mouth shut and just kind of doing my thing. I love being part of it. And I'm only part of it because of one of my, my best friends on the job who, retired last year, Sandy Lassa. He teaches, all over, and he's at Jim's, every one of Jim's classes. So at FTTN, he's one of the, one of Jim's best instructors. I was lucky enough to work with him in Boston, both at Ladder 15 and then later on at Heavy Rescue 1. And I worked with him for a little bit there as well. So I kind of followed him around, and he saw that I had a passion for a certain subject, which was firefighter rescue and RIT. And so I first took the class out there in Indianapolis. I mean, outside Indy. I first went to FTTN on my own, not through the department, just on my own, paid my way as a student. And I thought it was the best RIT class I'd ever taken. And then lucky enough to be involved when I got back to start teaching. So my first teaching on our job was being involved in RIT training. And I stayed in that, I don't want to say bubble, because I was talking to that, when I say bubble, sometimes that's a negative, but that's my passion. That's my, my wheelhouse is firefighter rescue, RIT training, a little bit of search training. That's my passion. So that's kind of how I eventually made my way to the IFF, because I was trying to be a constant student. I was taking classes. If there was a class on RIT or survival, I was going out of my way to take it. And that's where I was lucky enough to last minute get into an IFF class that was south of Boston. Boston wasn't hosting it. It was like a regional class, probably about 40 minutes south of the city. And I happened to get a call from somebody who was taking it, and it was the night before class started. And he said, Kenny, what's your thoughts on the IFF survival program? And I'm like, I was kind of confused. I'm like, you mean the online one? Because I'd done some online course.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, they'll encourage you to be safe and that stuff.
Yeah, it was just all a bunch of good videos and stuff. And I just started taking it online, and I didn't know there was a hands-on component to it. And I said, I've never taken it. And he says, oh, I'm taking it tomorrow, and maybe I can get you in the class. And I literally got in that class the night before, and it's just because of a random phone call from a guy I knew. And then I took the class like you guys did, and did my 4 days, met a lot of the good instructors. And then probably 8 months later, one of the instructors reached out to me and said, would you be interested in applying to be an instructor? And I was very honored that, So it was a long process from the time I took the class to when I got the call, I applied. It was almost 2 years by the time I got on the cadre. So it's, as you guys know, you're both into the job. There's a reason why you're doing this, because you guys want to learn. You're going to hear it a lot. Again, like the guests you bring on, they're all, top-notch guys, and they all know that you got to be a constant student. You can't be out there teaching, putting your face out there. You can't, unless you're continually trying to learn. And that's what I've tried to do. Mm-hmm. And that continued at FTTN, because you meet a whole new group of instructors. There's so many. I have so many good friends from the North Carolina area, Charlotte, Raleigh, Goldsboro, all these different Wake Forest, all these great guys that teach at gyms that I'll have lifelong friendships now with. Yeah, it's an incredible spot, and I happened to meet. We had our RIT station, and next door to us was the survival station that all the guys from the Charlotte area and Asheville, they ran that station. So they told me that they were basically building their props based on a class that they taught back in North Carolina. So hearing more and more about this class, I wanted to take it. So that ended up being the most difficult class I'd ever taken. The most strenuous, even harder than the class I'd taken at FTTN. That class in North Carolina, I believe they call it the North Carolina Breathing Equipment School. Some people call it the Breathing School. It's 5 days. It's a roughly 50-hour course. Everything from a little bit of classroom to self-survival to partner rescue to RIT team rescue to multiple team rescues, all using real people with a little bit of mannequins mixed in, all under live fire conditions. It was like a hell week. And if I didn't go to gyms to teach and meet these fellas, I wouldn't have, taken that class. And if I didn't take that class, I wouldn't have felt comfortable to apply to the IFF. Like there's all these things are all connected.
Yeah.
It's incredible by training, the network you create.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys will see it. You guys are, you're trying to create your own network here, and it's awesome. And that's, if I go on my Facebook, I probably have whatever, a few thousand friends. I don't have 4,000 friends, but
Yeah.
it's all because of my networking. Whenever I take a class, like reach out to me, and I have had people reach out to me that I met briefly at a training who need a parking spot when they visit Boston, and because parking in the city is terrible, parking at any of the firehouses in the city. They're like, I met a guy from this place or that place, and I ask him questions about whatever, and that's what there are a lot of benefits to social media other than just sharing images of your family and whatnot. But for me, it's a networking. I use Facebook just for like the people that I meet training and other classes that I want to take, and following these leadership guys that all you guys are familiar with.
For sure.
So
yeah, it's crazy. Just like you said, with just this network, and Brendan and I have been fortunate to go to a lot of trainings recently in our young career, and be sent off. Like we're going to Michigan next month for a cadet thing. We're going to him and I are both going to Into the Job in Wichita in August.
Yeah.
So, but just through like the people that we know that are on our department, and then the just trainings locally around here, and this, like, it's crazy. We talked about with Jeremy how we were like starstruck to even talk to Jeremy when he was up teaching with us, so that we reached out on Facebook afterwards to do that. And that really, everybody's just wants to share and be here, and like nobody's too good to talk to you or to network and to tell you and teach you what they know. So it's crazy how much information is out there if you want to go get it.
Oh yeah, and there's so like you said, you talked about Into the Job. I would love to go to that. My buddy Sandy that lost it, I was just talking about, he was one of the speakers last year at that. He said that was the best venue. Like the setup that they have, it was incredible. He said it was
awesome.
And he's done his little talks all over, and that was a pretty special one. So I have not made it out to that one yet. I do like the lecture series a lot. I like being a student, as far as hands-on goes too, but I love I love after action reports of near misses and maydays. That's still in my wheelhouse, like I said, my bubble, but those are the kind of classes I love to take and kind of learning from other folks. And that's where the IFF, although the IFF hands-on portion, as you guys know, it's not the most difficult thing you've ever done. But what I love about the IFF program is the instructor cadre, that a lot of those guys were either directly involved in a line of duty death or at the scene, and it's their stories that get you. And, sometimes we argue a little bit, me and the members of the cadre, because sometimes these guys don't share enough, I don't think, because I always say the skills are the skills. You know what I mean? You can go on YouTube and see any of those skills that we do. There's a lot of good people, instructors teaching those same skills. But I think it's the passion, the stories, the backstory that kind of gets guys. And that's what a lot of times they want to hear. And that's what I feel like I get when I go out to these places to teach. Like, it's the passion,
Yeah.
I know, like, they all have their catchy names, and they're there for, they're all catchy for a reason, because, guys just love the job, and they just want to share how happy they are to learn more, or to be a student, or to give. So yeah, it's a pretty cool, just like, I don't know if you've been to FDIC, which is like, it's like the Super Bowl of it's overwhelming a little bit.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, that's I think the goal next year. We got a list of places we're trying to check off, but it seems like it's growing faster than we can check things off. So
yeah, it's good to get a little taste of a little bit of everything, and so yeah, those, I try to go to those, and the way FTTN runs their spring live fire camp, it's usually built to end so you can go to FDIC right after.
Nice.
So that's my ticket to get there, because it's tough to get to all these, as you know.
Yeah.
You guys are young guys. You both said you're buying a house. It's, you get real responsibilities, and you got kids. You add kids to the mix, and I'm grateful, and to be where I am in my life, where my kids are a little bit older now. So when I leave home, it's not the same as earlier in my career.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely am going to want to touch on that too. That's one of the things I added. But You talked about it briefly, so I'm gonna jump down to that one. Just because I think, like you said, when you shared your story at the IFF training that we did, it really did have lots of lessons and a lot of power into it. So, what lesson or lessons did you take out of the line of duty death that you experienced that you want everyone to learn, day one in a career?
Well, the big thing from that is, although I wasn't on the engine that day or the truck that day with those guys, I worked. That was my house, for over 9. Well, at that point, it was in my career. I spent 9 years there at that firehouse, and then I left to go to the heavy rescue for roughly 3 years, and then I made my way back to Ladder 15. So I did 2 stints there as a firefighter before things changed. So I got to work, directly with, one of my good friends, one of my guys on my group so on Ladder 15 Group 4, like I said earlier on, I was the new guy, first new guy they had gotten in a while. And a few years later, I think it was roughly 5 years later, Eddie Walsh, who did unfortunately die that day on Beacon Street, a line of duty death. Eddie Walsh was assigned to Ladder 15 out of the academy, and he was assigned to my group. So I was lucky enough to have Eddie on my group. He at the time was, I think, 3 or 4 years older than me, so I was technically his senior man, and he was he was older than me. He had fought for a long time to get on the job. He was not he was not in the service. He wasn't a veteran. So he was one of those guys who got a perfect score that kind of had to sit on the list for a lot longer than they should have. So when he came on, he'd already had a career started that he left. So he was a little bit older. He wasn't your typical probie. So we became instantly good friends. We had a very tight-knit group at that house. We did a lot of things together, and we worked together for about 5 years before Eddie decided to study for lieutenant. So it's unfortunate when you study, one of the negatives is if you do well enough, you're going to get promoted, and you're probably not going to get back to the house that you were a firefighter in, at least not for a while. So Eddie studied and got promoted, and he kind of bounced around the city for a little bit. And in that time he was bouncing around the city, so did I as a firefighter. That's when I tried a little bit of, some of the other different things on the job. So he eventually made his way back to that house, but he at this time was now on the engine across the floor. So he wasn't on the truck anymore. His ticket back to the firehouse was not on the truck, was to be a boss on the engine. So I didn't work for him then. I was already gone at that point. I decided to study too, and I was on the list to get promoted. So I was kind of floating around the city when he was working as lieutenant in my old house. And the other firefighter that did die that day transferred in to the firehouse while I was out. So I was already out of that firehouse for, about a year at that point. So I never really directly worked with Mike Kennedy, who I just knew him from just, being on the job. Although it's a big job, roughly 1,600 members, you kind of meet people here and there. And, I was training, just doing the RIT training once a year at that point. So it really wasn't, a full-fledged. I really wasn't like teaching like I am now. I was still early in my teaching career. And so when that happened that day, I don't want to get too much into it, but, it's a lot of, I can go on forever. But what made that unique was how fast things can change, how real this job gets. And then that's the kind of thing I wish you could stress I could stress to anybody who's listening to this, or just whether you're a probie, 10 years on the job, 15 years on the job, how real this job gets, how fast that can be, not saying that, anybody took that incident lightly or not like a professional, but things happened that day that we may never see again. A perfect storm of I always say a perfect storm of shit, meaning the weather, the response times for companies that were out of service, the lineup on the engine that day was just disjointed, all capable members, but it was just not your typical, first in box alarm that we would have. Everybody kind of showing up at the same time, rushing to get to the spot. This was unique as far as delays with other calls being in at the same time, companies at the shop, like again, the weather, training. So it was just a bunch of perfect storm that was all like people say those dominoes start to fall, like or the Swiss cheese, where everything's lining up. And our tactics were what they were at the time, are a little different now. That was one of the big things that changed after that, was how we, some of our SOPs or SOGs needed to be updated. And of course, there is a lot of good that comes from something terrible like a tragedy like that. But anyway, so when that happened, I just happened to be at training that day. I was with another company, and I was unsure who was working that day because Eddie, he was just back to that firehouse for a month, and I really wasn't even sure what group he was on. So I really was unsure who was working that day, because we all kind of heard the Mayday come in at training, and people were kind of scrambling. Who was that? Like whose voice was that? And once it dawned on me who it was, it took a second to kind of like register, because Eddie at the time, like I said, we've been friends for years. Our families knew each other. It was tough. And then by the time I got to the scene, everything had already happened. He was still inside the building, but they had already pulled everybody out. Mike was pulled out unconscious, and he was, pronounced dead at the hospital. Eddie was still unaccounted for, but they had an idea of where he was. I was able to be part, of the procession when they did finally remove his body. And, it was just terrible. It was a long, long day. The weather was horrible for that time of year. It was late March, but it felt like an early January day. It was so windy, so cold, so wet, just an awful day from like morning until sunset. It was just an awful day. And what kind of like brought it all home to me was the way we do it on our job to get promoted is like probably is on most places. You can't get promoted unless there's a position. So whether somebody retires or unfortunately dies, like Eddie did, I was next in line to get promoted. So it just so happened to be that when Eddie perished, that was my job. And you always kind of remember who you got promoted for. I got promoted to captain for this guy because he retired. But it's always usually a, like not a terrible a story, but sometimes it is. So, that stuck with me for a long time, that like I was not going to take that lightly. And that's kind of when my career like took a different track. I was that guy who was into the job and into this rich survival. It just went to another level. That's when I started traveling everywhere. That's when I got out of my bubble. That's when I finally decided to play more of a role on our job, as far as like being involved more. Because after that happened, the city went through a mayoral change. We went through a new commissioner. We got new apparatus, new gear, new SOGs. We had a whole different mindset. We really weren't the most highly trained job before that. We did our basic training here and there at the academy, but after the line of duty death in 2014, it went to a different level. It was so many people getting the turnover was incredible. Just the timing, like there was a lot of good that came out of it. Like I said, the apparatuses were all replaced. I mean, you're talking 34 firehouses, all new trucks, engines over a span of 3 to 4 years. All of that was, changed. We had a mayor. We had a mayor that was behind us. Our commissioner was a very progressive commissioner. New gear, everything, tactics. We had a new training tower built at our academy. And I happened to be the new lieutenant who was kind of just lucky enough to be involved in all of those things, whether it was, the new gear that we were testing out. They needed instructors at the academy, and it all got, but it's all because of that day that like I said, I dedicate, my second half of my career, I've dedicated to Eddie, because I wouldn't be doing any of these things if that day didn't happen. And I don't take it lightly that I was promoted for him.
Yeah. Well, that's very, very real, very intense. I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, we hear it all the time in terms of that kind of not realizing how fast things can change, like the complacency that sets in and just all sorts of different things, whether it's like, we don't get fires anymore, or we've been we talked a lot in the IFF course about the fire alarms. This is your 5th time that you've been here and you're not even suiting up at all. Like, yep. Just, I think that can get lost, especially in the lull spots. I mean, you guys, bigger department, and all the bigger departments, you get it a little bit better in terms of that reminder constantly, where maybe you go one shift without a fire and you're like, oh, damn, like this is crazy. And then, you know, us, it can be months, but the fire's still fire, you know, and that's what we always talk about and say is the people that say that stuff only happens in a big city, like,
no,
you're in the bubble if that's what you're saying. Like it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, we just have a lot of what we have is like, you know, that commissioner I was talking about, who's since left, who's, you know, that prior commissioner used to talk about the job. He's like, you know, you have like, I think every job has that like 5 to 10%, you know, that just sucks, that you're never going to change, that, you know, that's just who they are. And, you know, 5 to 10% doesn't sound like that much, but when you talk about a department with, you know, 15 to 1,600 members, that's still a pretty good number. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of funny because those are the guys. When I teach, I like teaching recruits and probies, which I haven't done that in a while, but my passion now is the field. I love teaching the guys in the field. I love teaching the members that are on duty, who don't want to be at training, who aren't into it as much, who, you know, are disgruntled that they have, you know, that they even have to be there to do this drill. Those are the guys that I like trying to win over. And, you know, I'm not massaging their backs or anything, but, you know, there's a little bit of that, you know, it's how you approach it. And ideally it's with, you know, your personality. And I'm just not one of those guys who can be an asshole. But, you know, I guess I can be when I have to, but I haven't had to. Thank God I haven't had to. Hopefully they just see the passion. And that's why I kind of stay in my wheelhouse too, though, whether it's, you know, the RIT survival. And now my new passion is new officer training. I love training new officers because I love passion, you know, trying to pass on the passion and how being a constant student, you know, being a sponge, being the forever probie. That's so I've taken that and trying to steer it towards new officer training. But when I say like I love teaching, it's, you know, it's those subjects. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be teaching hydraulics or pump ops, so, you know, that won't be a good class.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important, and just getting that buy-in. I mean, it's what we see all the time, and you see everywhere you go. I mean, I used to joke with one of my buddies who I went to a couple trainings with, like, you'd sit there, we'd go, it doesn't matter where you go in the country, you start sitting over a couple beers, and, you know, everybody airs their dirty laundry, talks about the stuff that they wish would be better, and you sit there listening, you're like, are we on the same department? Like, is this the same thing? So it's like, it takes that one person to voice up and be okay, yeah, you've got that, but what are you going to do about it? Like, know, it all revolves around that buy-in you hear from everybody.
And you can't control a lot of that stuff that happens above you, like the changes, the new commissioner, the new chief of ops, the new chief of department, whatever you call him. It's like a roller coaster. This guy is awesome. This guy's different. This guy sucks. This guy, you know, whatever it is, like, all you can control is your, you know, if you're an officer, all you control is your members. If you're a captain, your members and that house, you know, that's all you can control. And you're that middle manager. You're that guy in the middle who has to you can't be, you know, sitting around the kitchen table and bitching and moaning about everything wrong with the job, because once you become an officer, those days are over. You got to be kind of like that. I don't know, like that middleman, like that middle management, because as we know, like you know, you've heard these things thrown out in leadership classes that 90% of our issues aren't related to fireground stuff. It's that the firehouse, the administrative side of the job that, you know, gets mundane and gets tough, and that's where you have to deal with a lot of your issues. So,
yeah, I think it was Corley Moore when we were Oshkosh. So yeah, you want to come back to Wisconsin? I'll throw this out for them. Sawdust City. They had their first year of training this year. It was cool.
Yeah, I follow all those little. I'd love to get to these. I'd love to see who's teaching. And,
it sounds like they want to be bigger and better next year. So it's great. But Corey Moore was there and talking, and you mentioned the fact of, like, I think this goes kind of, especially what you were saying about finding the good in like those tragedies, but on a lesser scale, like always trying to find the lesson. I mean, he talked about he's obviously did his 9 hours of leadership, so he was talking about leaders and how throughout his career, some of the people that he's learned the most from has been the bad leaders that he's had.
Yeah,
because he's learned what to do, what not to do, how to get through those tough times. Like you can always be a lesson that you can find in that, and just really truthfully looking for that lesson constantly, and not just there's always going to be the gripes. There's always going to be it feels good to get stuff off your chest, but at the end of the day, can you go back and be like, okay, but now what?
Yeah. Well, I know the negativity can be tough, you know, around the firehouse. There's a lot of, you know, kitchen table can be a rough place. The kitchen table where I'm at now, there's actually 2 of them. It's huge.
Yeah.
You just got one.
In the morning, there's the 10 guys coming off shift and roughly 10 coming on. It's a big, it's crowded.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My new, yes, I'm the captain, but there's some things I don't have a say in. For some dumb reason, my new firehouse, the way they've always done it is the coffee hour in the morning and shift change is done in like nearly complete darkness. The TV is on, but they have all the lights really like it's even.
That's how ours is too.
They ease into the day.
Yeah, you gotta have something, I guess. Yeah. So, we just got one old kitchen table that we're hopefully gonna
fall apart.
A little shift project or
department
project, but yeah, it's just that place. I mean, you've seen the episodes before. We'll get into it. What we've deemed the kitchen table, because all the griping happens there. Some of the world solutions are there. I mean, like you could solve world hunger if you sat at the fire department kitchen table for like 3 days. We'd have it figured out. So.
It doesn't matter. Even awesome.
I think we had
houses, busy houses, they're all the same.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, been touching on everything there, but this next one that we have is, what characteristics do you look for in a new recruit? So you say you aren't teaching as much new recruits nowadays, but when you get somebody on, what are you looking for?
Yeah. So in Boston, there's only, as far as like new recruits, there's only one captain, in training, and he's down the academy as like the drill master. Which is, something I wouldn't mind doing someday, but yeah, that's another topic. But so as far as lieutenant go, that's where a lot of the options to teach recruits in the academy is the lieutenant position. It's a great spot for a new lieutenant to get assigned to the academy, because not only do you relearn the whole job, but you have a direct influence on the probies. And like I said earlier, teaching probies, I'm not saying a monkey could do it, but they'll listen to anything. They don't know anything. So yeah.
You tell them the sky is orange and they'll believe you.
But it's a great spot for a new instructor, never mind just a new lieutenant, but it's a great spot to kind of get your feet wet. But as far as probie, so I do have a probie now on my group. So I got to the firehouse in January. He got to the firehouse in December, and he was already on a different group. So I didn't mess with him at first. But then we had some guys who we had a guy who get transferred out to a different firehouse to slow down a little bit. And we just had to move some bodies. So long story short, I grabbed this probie a couple months ago and put him on my group. But since he's been there, he's had to go off to EMS class. So they basically took him out of the firehouse for 6 weeks to go to EMS class to get his, EMT basic. And then he came back from that. He basically went to driver's ed. We have like a driver's ed course for like a week, and then he's on vacation and now on vacation. So we really haven't worked together much. So I'm excited to get back. Like I'm basically looking at mid-July as like, he's like a new probie. He's like just first day in the firehouse again, because he's had so much time away that basically like starting over again. And he's a little bit older. He's not, we have 2 probies in the house. He's 10 years older than the other one. So he's, he's in his early 30s. So, he's got a little bit of more, seasoned as far as like he drove trucks or whatever. He's got a pretty good background as far as experience goes. But I'm looking forward to that. And I get a chance to like have plenty of time to kind of plan in my head how I want that to go and what we expect. The beautiful thing about having a probie on your group is that ideally your group is set up where a lot of the stuff is delegated down. I do have a great senior man who's got, I think, 16 or 17 years on the job. That's my senior man. The next guy has roughly 10 years in the fire service. He was on a different department before that. And then I have a guy with like 4 years who was just an ace. And so now we have the probie. So it's a pretty good mix. And a lot of this stuff is going to be taken care of as like what's the expectations go of what's he's expected to do by those members. And I just kind of make sure everything's getting done. And I can lead, when I have to and jump in when I have to. But you're not always blessed like that. I know that because I've been at other firehouses where my previous spot as a captain, I think where I was when I met you guys, very slow house, great house, but completely different clientele, a lot slower, way more laid back. We're talking 3 calls in 24 hours, like that kind of slow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Compared to where I am now, where I'm doing almost 20.
Yeah. That's crazy. You can have that much of a difference, like on one department. Like that's insane.
one of the negatives about getting promoted. Again, you kind of, you just slim pickings.
Yeah.
That spot, I will say, later in your career, it is an awesome spot.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just not where I wanted to be and not where I think a probie should be for very long.
Yeah. That's
So-
what we call our retirement homes around here.
Yeah.
Every department's got the retirement house. So
Oh, yeah.
that's right. And, everybody, they all know it. Everybody doesn't, not too proud to admit it when you got there. We're a one-station department, so not here, but that's where you hear everywhere is you got there. My dad retired in February. He was at the retirement house his last year and a half.
Doesn't mean he's lazy.
Yeah, exactly. It's just you've served your time. It's not like we talked about the compliance. Like, doesn't mean they're any less ready for the job.
Nope.
It's just they're not picking up grandma 17 times in one day.
Exactly. True. But I did have a probie there versus my probie now. The probie I had at my previous house, the slow house, I had to be directly involved with everything every day because the other members in that group all had less than 7 years on. It was an incredibly young group. So every day we would do a drill, and the drills we're talking about 20, 30 minutes, nothing crazy. I'm not a big, although I love training, I don't think it's necessary to just, hours on hours every tour. But we did something every tour. And then we tried to do something on those infrequent runs, as far as, taking that run a little further, whether it was a medical or, what it was, investigating an alarm. So we took advantage of every little thing that we had. And, we spent a lot of time on the road, driving around, grabbing coffee, doing a little district familiarization. That's all training without really feeling like you're training. You know what I mean? Just kind of everybody's talking and kind of contributing. So, that house, I definitely had to be more directly involved versus now. It's a little bit more, it's nice having those guys below me that they're the ones who are cutting open roofs and stuff. And those are the guys who have been forcing doors. They've been at that, ladder 4 for a little bit now. So I'm going to rely on them a little bit more at this house, and then I'll step in as needed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess, we kind of gave some long-winded workarounds for it, but what, if you had to pick like one characteristic of that you really look for, like when you see it, when you're in the probie school, when you got one in, like what's the one that gets you going the most and most excited for that young firefighter?
I kind of touched on it earlier, and I feel like that mindset, that probie mindset, like not losing that spark, like, yes, keeping your mouth shut, asking the right questions, not just asking stuff to ask it, not being a pain in the ass, but like you could tell, you could see the passion in their face. You guys know it. Like you guys both seem like you would be those guys. You know what I mean? You're obviously into the job, but you're not strange weirdos.
Our captain, I think our captain would argue on the pain in the ass part, or especially Brennan.
I think we're a big pain in the ass.
we got we're a little bit slower. We have our shift camaraderie ways of picking on each other. So Brennan gets the brunt of it a lot, or our captain, but it's all in good fun. So it was funny there. But yes, as
are you guys on the same group together?
Yeah, we're on the same shift. We just got off this morning, so
awesome.
It's definitely unique. But yeah, we got a kind of uniqueness in our probies in terms of how they're treated. They for like you experience how we talked about, it's unique. Everybody drives, everybody does everything. Like they kind of have to be a part of everything immediately. So like there's still your little hazing that's not hazing that happens, and you get everyone that shows up and keeps their mouth shut, does their job in there. But definitely as soon as 4 o'clock hits our after hours, like everybody's in, we make sure everybody's in the recliners. We're all relaxed and we're all just picking on each other and enjoying that. So I would think it was just funny. I saw Brendan smile as well when you talk about not being a pain in the ass, thinking about what we put our captain and Brendan through.
That's good. I can already tell all you guys get along. You know what I mean? Yeah. The worst thing you can do is have, a firehouse where there's one guy in the patrol desk, one guy by himself in the kitchen, one guy in the bedroom, one guy in the office. Like that's not what you don't want. And luckily the last 2 houses I've been at, even though it was a slower house, everybody was out front. It was a very busy area where the people watching was insane. So, everybody was out front. The camaraderie was great. But this one particular probie that I had there, and it wasn't just for show. There could be different times where I'd walk by the patrol desk and this kid was always in the maps, always looking at his routes, just always doing the right, always picking up a broom at the right time.
Yeah.
Just like, and I noticed this, and then I pulled him aside because I felt bad. Like I get attached to you get attached to the guys, and I didn't want to leave them just because, they did something wrong. When I put in for ladder 4 and left engine 8, It wasn't because I didn't want to work with those guys anymore. Ideally, I wish I could have took them all with me. But they were happy there. But this one particular kid, this Proby, he had just finished his year. His year was up. And I said, listen, this is a great house, but you don't belong here, and he like didn't want to come out and say that initially to me, but he had been thinking about that for a while. He's like, oh, I'm glad you said that. He's like, I do love it here, but I just want to be busy and blah, 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 blah. So I tried to do everything in my power, like through different captains that I know to like, hey, we got to get this kid a good spot. So if he puts in for your company and he's second or third on the list, would you be willing to take him? And I tried to do my best to vouch for him. And that's what happened. He got a very busy engine. He's going to get a lot more opportunities to go to fires and a lot more opportunities to go to elevator calls and this and that, trolley incidents. So that kid's, I'm at ladder 4 and I see him every now and then because our districts kind of abut each other. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
And I really don't know this kid that I have now very well because we've had this schedule where I haven't been able to work with him much. But, come mid-July, I'm looking to, do that same thing.
Yeah. You just brushed over it, and I feel like I got to touch on it because, it's something unique to Boston. I forgot my aunt used to live there, so I got to go down there quite a few times, or over there, technically, I guess it is down. But trolley incidents. What are you referring to by that? Like, how often do you get incidents, accidents, whatever it be with those trolleys? Like, to me, I'm just curious now. As soon as I read that, that's nothing that we would ever deal with. Right.
So certain part of the city has, we have our subway system, and then we have our bus system, but then we also have a trolley system that, not like a little bit like San Francisco, what they have on the outside, they're connected to wires above and they're just basically an above ground subway, but the cars are a little bit different looking, the subway car, or the trolley cars. And they happen to go right in front of certain firehouses. And the one that kid got a chance to go to, that's where his house is. So they definitely deal with them. Like there's guys on our job who've never had a trolley incident, but then there's other guys who, maybe once every couple of weeks, they're having somebody whose foot gets run over or a bike gets hit or a derailment or, someone's pinned underneath. So so unless you're on a heavy rescue or one of those firehouses right there, it's pretty unique as far as, a run or a call, like just to those certain areas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just as soon as you say it's so casually, I was like, it's hilarious because, like you said, there's very few places where you would ever run into something like that. So it's just kind of cool to hear the things that would happen there, what that actually entails. So, but
no different than like a guy who works downtown versus a guy who works in one of our neighborhoods. The guy in the neighborhood might do one elevator call a year. Another guy might do 5 a shift. If you're downtown, so yeah,
it's crazy. This next one that we got down here, you were talking about how one of your new passions is teaching those new officers. So kind of perfect question for that. What should new leaders, both unofficial and official, if you got different advice for each or one more to touch on, main focus be when it comes to the crew? So like we've said, when you earn your respect, when you show up, how you run the crew, you've talked about being that sponge, but kind of what else would be your key thing as a leader that you should be focusing on?
I'd focus on what they want, like what they need. And again, you have to take a little bit of time. So you'd be that little bit of a sponge, like I said, initially kind of taking it all in. When I was first appointed lieutenant, I was at the academy, and then I eventually got my first spot out in the field. I was on ladder 24, which is again downtown, because when you're a new officer, it's those downtown companies are a little bit easy to get. There's a little more turnover as far as officers are kind of in and out because you're busy, but you're really not going to much fires. You're running all day, but not many fires.
Yeah.
Anyway, this house also had a big turnover as far as its age. It was a very young house, like multiple members from one class being sent to this house at once, like 5 to 7 guys from one drill class all being sent to the same house. So it was good because that was my first spot, and I knew a lot of these guys from the academy. And one of the things that I did there that I've done a couple times since, and ideally if I get to a certain point in my career and training, I would like to try it again, is that I took like an informal poll. Like I just in the kitchen table one day, I'm like, hey guys, there's a yellow sticky notes on the table. Do me a favor. Give me a couple options of something you want to get better at or something you'd like to train on. And, and I said, when you're done with it, just throw it in this little bucket, like a little trash bucket. I said, just throw it in there. And I did that on every group at shift change. And I slowly got all these little notes in there. Some of them guys messing with me, but I just kind of collected them and I went through them and I just kind of tallied them up. Let's say I had like 20 something responses. There might've been like 12 associated with, I wish I was better at elevators, or I wish I got to physically cut something other than just starting the saw in the morning, and I said, this is perfect. So I had an in with the trading division and I said, hey, listen, I just took an informal poll and this is what the guys want to do. This is what they want to see. So that kind of led to an introduction to elevator class for our job. And that led to a roof cutting class, because if you're downtown, you're not cutting many roofs. You know what I mean? You're still checking the tools every morning, but the opportunity to cut a roof really doesn't happen as much. So a lot of guys aren't really good at cutting roofs, not because they're not good at it, it's just because they haven't had the opportunity. So what I'm saying is, as a leader, you can kind of informally, just find out what they want, what they need, that previous commissioner, when he first took over, he spent, I think it took him like 2 months. He visited every firehouse, every group, just an informal, you're out of service for a half hour. When he showed up, he just took right at the kitchen table, like, what do you guys want? What do you guys need? What would you like to see? And he informally did that over a span of 2 months. And he kind of directed the way the department went. And I tried to do that on a much smaller level. I think he stole my idea, but I'm so I hope to have that kind of say, because I'm at the point in my career. I love being on ladder 4. I'm finally at a spot, as a captain. It took me 3 years to get a really busy spot. But I know as I get closer to the end, I do want to do something different. I want to pivot, and I would love to have more of a say on where training goes for the whole job, And I've been lucky enough to be involved in all different things now, and I do have some input, but I would, not that I want to leave the firehouse, but I think that I just want to see, I've always said this, I just love when people embrace the position they're in, whether it's the firehouse you got sent to that's slow, or fire prevention division because there's no spots for you in the field and you get stuck in fire prevention as a new officer. I love when guys embrace whatever role they're in. And I love seeing guys actually want to be in that position rather than just, it's great to make the best of it, of course. But I love when guys put in for stuff that they really want to do. And sometimes it's not in the field. You can have a huge impact, I think, if you have the right guys in the right spots at that admin level, who have a direct impact with tactics, equipment, things of that nature.
Yeah. You gotta be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Finding what you're passionate for. I mean, we've talked about it quite a few times about how, nowadays in the fire service, it's a lot more than just firefighting. I mean, you throw in the giant monster that is EMS, on top of everything, but there's, car accidents, trolley accidents, elevator stuff, there's just everything you've got to be prepared for. And, having that passion is going to let you learn it all and not just go on the crutch of we're I'm a firefighter. That's all I do.
100%. And it can get tough, keeping that passion up. Right now at ladder 4, the reason why we're the busiest truck in the city and the busiest engine is, in the same district, is that we have just like a lot of big cities and small towns, there's a very huge opioid epidemic going on. So there's this one area of the city that's not the nicest area, right near my firehouse, that we're talking hundreds to almost 1,000 people a day kind of living in tents, a tent city. Ladder 4 is on pace, I think, to do over 5,500 runs by the end of this year if we continue this pace up.
Wow.
So we're 1,000 runs more than any other company, because we also run with a bunch of single engine houses. But the opioid epidemic it's really taxing. We're 20 runs a shift, 8 runs after midnight, all to the same spot, and that wears on the guys. As a boss, you got to kind of talk about being upbeat and trying to have a good spin on it, because even your best, strongest firefighters, they get beat down, and it's up to you as the boss. It's up to you as that senior man to see the big picture, that this won't go on forever, and it may seem like it's only getting worse. But it's tough right now. Responding to that tent city area, just to be honest, it's disgusting. It's a lot worse than people think. And I know big like LA has the same issues, Seattle, New York City. maybe you guys have it too, in your own
much
little
smaller,
way.
yeah, much smaller
Yeah.
scale. Yeah.
But it's pretty tough. And because when I was appointed to ladder 15, I remember ladder 15 being, if not the number one or the number two busiest truck, meaning like between like 3,700 runs and 4,000 runs a year. That was the busiest truck. But then once that opioid epidemic hit, companies in that area added 1,500 to 2,000 runs to each apparatus. So ladder 4 may have been 3,000 runs 20 years ago. Now they're 5,500. So, but there are some benefits to that. The people in that firehouse at ladder 4 and engine 14, or the people at engine 21, where I was a lieutenant, you're going to get destroyed every shift. So guys who are there love being there because you do have the opportunity to go to fires. It's one of the busier fire districts. So there are obviously benefits to being there.
Yeah,
you got to put up with a lot. You do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we mention it every single podcast, but that's one of the nice things about like our department is, not, like we said, not to that scale. But we've talked about how many calls we run, but you just see so many places where you get burnt out. And especially like around here in the Wisconsin area, there's a lot of departments where like it's a promotion basically each time. So like you start on as a medic and you're on the ambo and you're on the ambo every single shift you come in. And like, yeah, if a fire comes in, you probably got a pack on the ambo. You get to actually go be a firefighter if you pick up some overtime or whatever.
Yep. But
for the most part, like you're always on that. And then I think that just leads to such burnout and such lack of like compassion for that. Because like for us, we're on the ambo twice every 6 shifts. And then, we get to come in, we get to be firefighter, driver, truck driver, whatever it be. But it's just, I think you hold on to that compassion for so much longer because it's not like I got 7 years of this shit. I got one more shift of this.
Yeah.
And I'm just here. I'm a firefighter. I get to go along for the cool calls, do all the fun stuff. And then, so, cause it's 90% of it is just the stuff that gets taxing. Not that it's not important to that patient, which is, I think, the biggest thing of keeping that compassion is it may be the 16th time you've been there, or you've seen them 4 times in the last week and you're just sick of being there. But to them, it could mean everything. Like they've got a genuine problem going on, or maybe they are a shitbag that's just making or using the system to its advantage. But for the most part, they really do want you there, and you got to have that level of compassion, even if you don't want to show it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And luckily, I want to say luckily, but in Boston, the ambulance is a separate city agency. So we have Boston EMS. They're not part of the fire department. Yeah. So when we go on a medical call, we get to, the ambulance is here. All right, we're all set. Yeah. We're kind of spoiled in that way. But what those guys see on a daily basis right now, and a lot of those ambulance services across the country, where that's all they do, man, they're the real hero. I mean, that's some tough work.
Yeah. Brent and I both worked private in Milwaukee, and it's just insane. It's a whole another animal, like you said. It's just having that and nothing but that, nothing to break it up. Mostly even not any of the firehouse camaraderie. Like a lot of the people they're there for a stepping stone. But even if you got great people that you're working with out of one station, at least for me, I barely saw the station. I was running.
I thought he was out in the rig.
Yeah, if we weren't on a 911 call, we were running in a facility. It's just you don't have that. You got your partner, and if you got a bad partner, that makes the shift go on a long time. So I was lucky enough to have some really good ones there, but there was days that it just felt like it wasn't going to end.
Yep, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So
all right, next one that we got in here. This is one that I kind of came up with, when you touched on it earlier, is obviously you're a busy guy. You talked about you've been doing this stuff for a while and getting out of your bubble, going to all these trainings and instructing and all that. How have you found the best to manage kind of your private life and that fire life? That's a lot of time away from the families, but married 25 years, you're married 23 years, you've done it. You found a way to do it, obviously.
Yeah. Well, give kudos to the wife. Hopefully she watches this. No, honestly, I couldn't do it without her. I mean, she does everything. I'm in the basement right now, and when I'm at work, she's painting this whole basement. She installed laminate floor by herself in three different rooms while I was away a couple weeks ago. Yeah, she's the real the real boss in this house, but she does a lot. But I think I told you, I grew up in the city. I was born and raised in the city, but now we live in a little bit of the sticks. We're in the boonies a little bit, and we did that because she was able to, when we decided to have children, kind of give up her career and become a full-time mom, and so she's able to be home with the kids. So we're not relying on her to work a full-time job. So that gives me a little bit of flexibility, especially as the kids have gotten older, to kind of get away and teach as much as I can. And that has a lot to do with it. Is her commitment to the children initially has led to me being able to teach now. So that's the trade-off. I don't mind driving a long commute because it enabled us to, so she didn't have to work. Obviously, the further you get away from the city, the more affordable it is. So that works for us. Guys I work with think I'm nuts that I live that far away, but whatever. I mean, it works for us.
How far away do you live? Just out of curiosity.
It's over an hour, but with traffic in the city, if I teach a class during the day, it could take me 3 hours to get home. So,
oh wow, yeah.
So yeah,
it's not necessarily unheard of around here. You got some people that do stuff like that. I mean, like going back to my private life, I know there was 2 people that worked down in Milwaukee with me that lived up in the Green Bay area. So like when they came down, that was like 2.5 hours, and they'd come down in snowstorms and stuff, and it would take them 3-4 hours. And to come down to Milwaukee, work a private ambulance where you're running nonstop and then have to go back, like it's just it's crazy. But a lot of them had that exact same reasoning of it was best for their family or where their significant other wanted to be, and it's just so finding that trade off and making that is, I think,
And I like I don't mind I like the long ride. I like listening to sports talk. I like having my coffee. I like kind of mentally getting ready for work. Yep. And, I try to do all my, my thinking and, getting ready for the day. Yeah. I touch on it every now and then when I teach too. That's my part of my size up, like just getting mentally ready for the day. Like you would not believe like how much you can get done. Just those long commutes, if you take advantage of it. Whether it's podcasts, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and most of them when I'm driving or if I go for walks, because I'm a middle-aged man now, so I go for walks.
I do too.
Yeah. No, I got a 25-minute drive, and that's what I've always said is my favorite, is having that, that little bit of time to separate work from life. So, but that's, you figured it out. You did that, so I want to make sure we touched on that because like give you a chance to give credit where credit's due. It's awesome to hear, but very very busy man and very successful family and happy family. So it's great to hear.
Yep, and it's all honestly, it's all because of the wife. Her ability to stay home with the kids and stay on top of them throughout school, and my oldest was they're both very good students, but my oldest was lucky enough to get a scholarship. To a very prestigious school. And it's honestly, if my wife wasn't home throughout their childhood, not saying that wouldn't have happened, but it would have been a lot harder,
Yeah.
She doesn't take her eye off the 8 ball, and she's not a helicopter mom, but she's awesome at what she does. And, we're 1 for 1 so far. We got 1 more on the way to get to college in a couple of years. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you go. Hopefully they take after her, not your college stint, right?
We'll see.
Well, yeah, so that kind of concludes our main questions that we got there. So then we got, the 2 hard ones that are coming from every guest. So if you watch them or whatever, we kind of explain each time. We've got our last 2 questions that we have are the one that's asked from the previous guest. So he didn't ask it on the podcast. He had to come up with it afterwards, got a little stumped a little bit. But we got that one, and then we'll follow up with you asking a question for the next guest. So question that Blatz from last episode had is, if you could change one thing in the fire service, what would it be?
That's a tough one. That's a good one because I have 1,000 things I want to say, and I touched on. I wish that there was. So you guys are in Beaver Dam, right?
Mm-hmm.
You guys are in the middle of Wisconsin. I'm in Boston. We only know each other because of training. Like I wish that there was opportunities or. Like where it was just, it's almost like I don't know how to explain this, but like if I didn't train, if I didn't travel, I wouldn't have met this guy or that guy or this guy, and I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't do that. And it's amazing how that network just explodes the more you train, the more guys you meet. But there's a lot of people on my job, and I guarantee you on your job, who aren't going to leave their bubble, but maybe if it was more of like I know we're all connected to the international union, for the most part, but I wish there was more of a connection, from big city to the city next door. Like, there's really everything ends at the borders for the most part, most places, you know what I mean? I know you guys do mutual aid, but what I'm saying is like outside your little bubble. And I've used bubble a lot and stuff, but that's what I mean. Like, I wish there was a way that others can benefit that just don't know about like what we're doing right now. This is fun, this isn't, this is fun stuff. This is not hard. We're talking about our passion for the job. Mm-hmm. And a lot of guys on my job will never know that. And I wish there was a way like that we automatically sent 15 people to FDIC every year. We always send 5 guys to Into the Job. We always send guys down to Kurt Isaacson for this or that. I wish there was a way to do that, like where you get promoted, you're off to Take the Doors heavy rescue training in Syracuse. You know what I mean? Like there was a way that we reached out of our little network and just, there's so much to learn from really good folks out there, small towns, big cities. There's so much to learn. And I wish there was a way that more people got to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hear it, like we said, everywhere you go, there's the people that, my favorite comment you hear it at every single training is, the person that needs to hear this isn't here. Like, and right. So they don't have, you not only don't have that, but you don't have that connection that comes. So what 100%. You're referring to, I mean, you've already seemed like you've got your sights set on that big picture of having that training in Boston. But I think that definitely does sound like a solution where you almost make it, not mandatory, but like you said, when you get promoted, you have to go to here. So it does force that person's hand who maybe they feel that
bringing those people in. Like I think it's huge to bring them in. Like for a long time in our job, we thought this is Boston, we're the best. Nobody's, and a lot of cities think like that. We're not the best. Like we have a lot to learn. And we have some unbelievable folks, but we have some like your little shitbags. We have those. But yeah, that's. Ideally, that's why when I talk about training and in the future, I would hopefully that my network I would share. You know what I mean? Like that's what I would just like to bring folks like you guys. Like I wish everybody realized how great it is to have what we have, and like how many people would kill to be in our spots.
Oh my God, yeah.
And that means something.
Sure.
Best job I ever had.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true and true again every single time. Just the more you dive into it, how many people just are there for everybody just because we share that one common
brother and sisterhood
that
we all share. So.
Like there's so many times you just wish that could like extend to the real life where people have this kind of stuff. Like just because we share a job, like you could have nothing in common with any of these other people, but you're both firefighters. You could sit out at the bar, like close the bar, just talking countless hours about just that.
Even what we're doing right now, there's folks on my job who'll be like, "What are you doing? What? You're talking about fight? Like what?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like they don't even know there's a whole world they don't know about. Like that's of just guys like yourselves and who just into it, and just you're not. I said it earlier, you're not we call them Sparks, like guys who are into the job, like that aren't on the job, like Spark weirdos, or
we call them Farkles.
Fire buffs,
We call them Farkles around where we are. Yeah. So that's what we call them. But yeah, it's awesome. So
yeah. Because I'll get that every now and then. I'll get that, like, man, you're a real Sparky. I'm like, no, I didn't even want to be a fireman growing up, but I embraced it. I didn't know anything about it, and I was lucky enough to fall into like this job, and I'm diving in head first. Even though I can't swim.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just time and time. It's fantastic. So now you got the hardest question of them all, or at least historically it has been. So. What question do you have for our next guest that you wish that you asked as a new firefighter or that you currently have?
Okay. What do I wish that is a tough one. I know that I have regrets, and I wish maybe I didn't ask, but I wish I did. I wish I did go to an engine. I wish I did go to a neighborhood firehouse. I wish, because on our job in a lot of cities, I would imagine that the downtown firehouse is a lot different than the neighborhood firehouse. Completely different, responses. What you go to as far as construction, the way the fires downtown. When we did have them, they were a lot more. There's a lot more involved. There's a lot more chiefs. There's a lot more. There's standpipes. There's all this stuff involved. When you go to a neighborhood firehouse, you're talking one room, bread and butter, like high fiving, like just in and out fires, like bang, nice and easy. Like I said, bread and butter. Like we can do this. Downtown, they were less frequent, and when we did have them, they were just always something crazy. And I don't know. I never experienced the neighborhood firefighting. I did as a lieutenant and a captain, but never as a firefighter. And I wish someone said, you need to get out of your bubble here. You need to try something else. This place is awesome. Kind of what I helped this young kid at my previous firehouse. Like,
yeah, you're
a good kid. You need to try this. And that's because I wish somebody did that to me. I wish somebody said, hey, here we go again. Get out of your bubble and try something different, And then there's other people who said, no, I love this house, the pride. Why would I leave? I get it. There's you might have been blessed with the best spot ever right out of the gate. But unless you try other things, you'll never know that. So I've tried a lot. I've tried an engine. I've tried a rescue. I've tried a truck. I've tried training. The only thing I haven't done is a tower unit or the marine unit, which I'm all set with both.
So then what would be kind of the way that you would want to ask? So our next guest is Sean Duffy. What would you like to ask him as that young one?
You know what? Why are you here? Like, why are you here? No, really. Like, it may be because he chased fire trucks. And I happened to meet him once. He probably doesn't remember, but maybe he did chase fire trucks his whole youth. But why are you here? Like, what's your why?
Yeah.
Me and my buddy, when we teach officer development, he loves that topic. Going around to the different offices. What's your why? Why are you here? Why are you sitting here right now? It could be a million different reasons. It could be financial. It could be that I want to be a boss. I just want to keep moving up the chain. Like, why are you here? Why are you a probie? Why are you at my house? Like, maybe just find out his why.
Yeah. I was laughing because that was Jeremy Sanders, our first guest. That was his question for Blatz was why are you here? So that was
damn.
It was great. It's a great question because it's got gets Blatz thinking. I think it is one that you don't hear because everybody you say, oh, why are you here? Oh, I want to help people. No, that's probably not why you're actually here. Nobody decides really to do this job just because they woke up one day and was like, I really like helping people. Like, there's a lot of things that lead you to this specific job. And like one of our friends, he's going to be a guest on here later this year. He says all the time is, if your only reason that you're here is to help people, that's where you get burnt out because you have to have something other than that because, we don't help people every single day. We have those nuisance calls. We have that where you don't feel like you're doing something. So you've got to have a true passion as to why you wake up and go to work every morning than just helping people because unfortunately, people let you down. That's just how things go. So I think it sparks so much conversation, just that simple question.
Yeah. Hopefully. So hopefully Sean gives you a very elaborate. He'll probably ask the same question to the next fellow.
Yeah, right. Hopefully people don't use that as a fail-safe, and then but no, that's awesome. Yeah, always sparks some good conversation. So that closes all the questions that we have for you. So next, like we talked about, we just got our kitchen table portion. So anything that either sparked your mind during the podcast, Brendan's got anything to throw in there, just some calls that you want to touch on, anything that you feel that you didn't get a chance to share that you would like to share and can start any kind of, kitchen table bullshittery that happens.
So, I feel like I was all over the place. So maybe I've touched on a little bit of everything and just not the best order, but I would suggest that you guys keep pushing this out there. There's probably still a lot of people who don't know about it. Definitely. I've seen other people do it where they do the kind of show at different training sites. That'd be great to see you guys at different, like when you go into the job or whatever, maybe you can, do your show from there and get a lot of new listeners. And I love seeing this, like I said, I met you guys a year ago, and a lot has changed since then, like where you guys are now and where I am in my career. And in that span, I happened to lose my dad. Actually, it was kind of funny, or kind of strange is that it was during the Beaver Dam class that I got a call from my dad saying he had cancer, and
Wow.
and within a year he passed. So a lot changed
Sorry
that
to hear
one
that.
year. And I was extremely lucky in my family, extremely lucky. I lost 2 grandmothers well into their 90s, but other than that, I'm almost 50 years old, and this was the first one to really take our family by storm. So yeah, I mean, but I'll never forget that. I'll always associate finding out when I was in Beaver Dam. So.
It's kind of not the best.
No, just
that
like
we want to
I
have on
talked about
there.
earlier. Yeah, when I talked about Eddie and the line of duty.
Yeah,
job,
yeah.
I'll never forget why I got promoted and who I got promoted for. I mean,
Yeah.
you can find good in a lot of this stuff. And
yeah. Well, did you at least get a sweatshirt while you were there when we talked about from that bar, so that you have something?
No, not a sweatshirt. I got those, what do you call them? Koozies.
You got a koozie from it? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I know that was what we had said. You gotta stop by and pick up so you could have one of those to show. So
so Beaver Dam was also the place that we went to a restaurant. I don't know, what was it? A Friday? I don't know, TJ Fridays or a Chili's or one of those kind of places you guys had near our hotel. What is it?
Applebee's.
Applebee's.
Okay.
Do you guys have an Applebee's there? That
we do. I don't know if it's what hotel did you stay in?
It was kind of terrible, but I don't want to say
it. Probably okay. Actually, then it probably was Benvenuto's.
No, it was a chain. I can't. Whatever it was, we watched.
Okay,
we watched the chef because we were in the bathroom. We watched the chef use the bathroom, and I'm not saying the urinal, and then go right into the kitchen and bypass the sink. And we all got up and left.
Man. That sounds like Applebee's in town. That's pretty. It's a shithole. It is a shithole.
So there's another thing I'll never forget in Beaver Dam.
Great. Hopefully, now that all their reviews are gonna start plummeting. We're gonna get hopefully.
You lost that sponsorship. Sorry.
Yeah. Hopefully the fire department doesn't get a phone call complaining that we're. But no, that sounds about right.
We have like no good complaints on Applebee's.
Yeah,
exactly. It is a good table. Well, that's good.
Exactly. No, that's awesome. Yeah. I think I'm thinking you guys stayed in one of the hotels that just got renovated.
No, it was a nice hotel. It was one of the first times that I stayed with the cadre that wasn't.
Yep. It actually, yes, definitely over by Applebee's. Yeah, I know.
It was nice because they let us. Yeah, it was during COVID. It was kind of during the COVID time, right? Still, like people were a little strange still. But yeah, they were nice.
Is it the one with the free complimentary beer banner that's on the?
Yes.
That's
that's the one.
Yeah.
Did you get your beer?
We did every night.
Awesome.
That's what I mean. That's what I liked about that place. So this is where the camaraderie. Like every night after class, we all met in the lobby for the free beer, but it wasn't about that. It was we would all hang out and do kind of our after action for the day of class, and then we'd go upstairs and shower and get ready to go to Applebee's. But no, but that's part of the training too. Like when I talked about FGTN, the best part about FGTN is the dinners. He has a bunk room there that it's like 20 instructors staying in the bunk room.
Oh, geez, yeah,
it's like a big giant firehouse. Where everybody
awesome.
is like Mike Lombardo, Sandy Lasser, Jim McCormick, Timmy Klett, like all these guys that you would love to take a class from. They're all like, it's just kind of funny, and I'm grateful to be there. And like I said, I keep my mouth shut, other than, when guys are, messing with me, but, so.
Yeah, we talk about it may be just a Wisconsin thing, or at least, we like our beer. But there's so many trainings now that are popping up. Brennan was just at one. Was it last weekend or the weekend before? Where it was at a bar, and it was you can talk about a little bit, Brennan. But
yeah, Clyde Gordon, Mo Davis.
Oh yeah,
O'Connor Walk. JD was putting it on. Yeah, so it was at a brewery. I forgot the brewery's name, but no, it was very good. Kind of talk and kind of leadership, kind of culture stuff. It was probably the best presentations I've ever went to. So those guys are have her down in Houston. So it was very good. I met a couple different dudes from Oshkosh and stuff. Kind of get my networking out, and they're very humble guys. So it was very good training. So
that's great. I know it only takes some motivated guys to bring those guys to the area, and that's.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, ideally, at some point, hopefully, I'll have a chance to bring some fresh faces to my job. some fresh ideas.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you bring the beer and everybody comes. So that's
I like the idea of the tactics on tap. I've seen that promoted before.
Yeah.
I like that. That's just a great idea, a good concept.
Yeah, we had for Sawdust, they had they call it Brotherhood Bash. So that was the night before. So the convention was actually just the one day, but then if you went up on Friday, like Brennan and I did, it was there was a small presentation out at the bar and hour long, and then just hanging out, drinking beers, and just talking to everybody. They had a bunch of the presenters that were going to be there the next day, just everybody that was attending the conference. Like, it's you learn so much, you do so much networking, so much connection, and it's just the best part. I mean, it's so much fun.
Yep, it's that stuff that's after, and it's not all about the drinking and everything. I love beer myself. But no, but it's not more about that. It's again, it's that. The dinners you have, like
the company,
Or the other big day at FTTN is when you're setting up the props. Same thing with the IFF. When you're building the props the day before, or you're breaking it down after, like that's when a lot of the stuff is done too. And I pick up a lot. Those at FTTN, like I said, my station is next to the Asheville and Charlotte firefighters who run the survival program, and man, it's just great guys. Just unbelievable guys. And then you got the can next to us is the search guys with the Christiana, Delaware guys and Mike Lombardo. And it's just unique. And then you get the basement guys behind us and the hoarders guys. And, every group has their little cadre of guys that's their specialty. They have the forcible entry weirdos, across the way.
I tell you what, that forcible entry house kicks your ass.
Oh yeah.
That's fun. Yeah. That's fun.
Yep. That is, I tried it as just messing around when they built it, the first camp. Sandy Lasso was like, "Come on, Kenny, let's do this." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Let's do it. Get your pack on." I'm like, "Oh man." It was at the end of the day after we built props and everybody's watching to see how it plays out. And I was like, "Man, this thing's hard. This thing's not easy."
I get it hot in there.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Good.
So yeah, that's what makes Jim's play special. It's the forcible entry that you're doing is basic. The RIT skills that you're doing, the survival skills you're doing, they're all basic. Super basic stuff, but they're done under conditions that you have never experienced in training before, more than likely in training. So it's like, I always say it's basic skills under less than ideal conditions.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And that changes everything.
It does.
Yeah, that was great stuff. Like from your IFF course, like you said, it wasn't the most, ass kicking of a course, but
no.
I mean, I can tell you, anytime that we're doing a fire training, BOA is thrown out more than anything else. Like that was one that absolutely stuck. It was one that stuck with me because I saw the benefits of it when we went through the confidence course. I mean, I was working myself up. I think it was the smaller hole that I was getting one of my things stuck and taking that breath.
You get all kind of you get aggravated and everybody's watching. You're into the job, so you're you don't want to look like an idiot. Trust me, I've been there. That's what I'm saying. I like being uncomfortable. I like putting myself in situations like that. That's what I want to continue to do, even though I'm late in my career and, I'm going to be 50 this year. I still kind of putting, my money where my mouth is. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You shouldn't be teaching anything unless you've done it. You know what I mean? That's my motto.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
And I kind of argued, before we wrap up, I butted heads with a couple of the cadre members about once you leave your job, how long should you stay on the cadre? If you've been gone for the job from 10 years, you're talking about searching and survival, and maybe it's time to, get some new blood. You know what I mean?
A lot can change. A lot does.
Absolutely.
And there's still places for that. So I teach up at our technical college, and so that's that's a little bit different because it's not there. But you go there, a lot of the lead instructors are retired guys for the classroom portion, and so that's great because that's where a lot of them still strive. They have a lot of the statistics, and they're open to the statistical change and stuff. But then
it's classroom, right?
Yeah, you get out to the hands-on portion, and I mean every instructor that's actually teaching. And in the building, some of those retired guys that may be the safety or the IC, but everybody that's in there helping out is on the job still. So it's all current firefighters, current officers, everybody that's there helping. So it's really nice. And there's always a place for people that are retired and don't want to leave the job, but it's when you're actually getting those hands-on, things change so quick.
It all depends on what you're teaching, is what I mean. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Leadership, things like engine ops, like pump operations, like that's completely different, like different subjects. But certain subjects, I think if you're not, like if you hadn't done it in a long, long time, maybe it's, it's time to kind of,
Yeah. No, for sure.
I take that to the extreme with myself. And like, even when I was on a slow company, I remember teaching like the field guys and I knew I was on a slow company. I'm like, I wonder if these guys are like judging me because I'm on a slow company. Like, and I shouldn't feel like that. And then like, so I battle with myself sometimes. I'm being too ridiculous. Like I still, like I said, I still act like I'm a new guy in a lot of the things that I do. And I don't know if you remember when I taught in Wisconsin that I am not a good classroom guy. Like you can see me now. I still get like, I love being outside and, kind of.
I'm the same way. I can't really teach classroom stuff.
Yeah. But it has to, but I can't take the easy way out and say, I don't like to do a class. You still got to do it. You got to grow up and just do it. So I put myself in uncomfortable situations.
Yep. Yeah. I think if I remember correctly, I don't know how long you were doing it beforehand, but you made a big deal of like it being one of your, not first, but like your first couple lecture series that you were really in charge of when you were out there. Because you talked a lot. You're like, I don't like to be the classroom guy standing up here and everything and to bear with you, but
it's true.
Get through it.
It's still true. Like I still like have that like that proby kind of feeling. A lot of things I do, but I love putting myself like in uncomfortable situations. I know I said it a bunch. Like that's how the way I get through stuff. Like even if
we all grow,
that's how you learn.
Yeah. You volunteer first to do the skill. I'll mess up. I'll look terrible doing it, but I'm going to do it.
And you're going to do it right the next time and the time after that and everything after that because you messed up. That's talked about it. I think it was last one. Probably everyone. I mean, the die in training of like have that big mess up happen in training where you let that thing slip or you do it where you can learn from that and move on. So when it comes to real world, you're like, I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to look stupid like that. I'm not going to do that. Like I know what I did now and it's not leaving me.
Right.
Good. Yeah. Brendan, you got anything else to add for?
I have one question. Do you run paramedics on your engines or trucks or just EMT basics?
EMT basics. There's a couple guys sprinkled in that paramedics, but there's no benefit to be a paramedic on my job. Okay. The reason why we have a medic is because they may have came over from Boston EMS. But yeah.
I know a lot. You get like preference points if you're a medic somewhere and you get like hired on quick or something. There's Boston.
Yeah, I know. I know out west, like you have to have like my buddies out west or LA or California, like all that stuff. You need to have that before you even apply. Like, no, we're very basic out east.
Awesome.
Huh. I can't believe we hit the 2-hour mark. I'm like, I can't believe this.
I told you it goes by quick.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. For sure. I guess all that's left is just to thank you for coming on. I mean, it was great.
Thank you very much.
You did great for your first podcast. So we are absolutely honored that you shared that experience with us. But yeah, first podcast, great to have you on. Hopefully get to see at some more of these trainings. I know Brendan wants to go back. I know myself trying to get to FDTN. So hopefully it'll be, if it's not there, it'll be at any of these other trainings that we'll run into. But definitely really appreciate you coming on. Next month, we've got Sean Duffy, so don't forget, guys, sending questions. So you got questions for Sean?
He's a real celebrity.
Yeah. No, it should be a good time. So if you got questions, send them in. And Kenny, we like to end our series. You mentioned you already bought into it, our little shitbag stuff. So every episode, we end with our saying of "Don't be a shitbag," which is just as clear as it sounds. And I say it, have Brennan say it, and we like to have the guests finish it off. So you think you can handle that? Are you prepared for that big task?
I do, and I don't think my accent comes into play at all for that.
Perfect. Well, then again, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you next time. Don't be a shitbag.
Don't be a shitbag.
Don't be a shitbag.